Our guest today is Dame Anna Hassan. She's head teacher of Millfields Primary School in Hackney in East London. She's considered to be one of the country's leading head teachers, having turned round a school in one of the most challenging areas of the country. 70% of children at her school have English as a second language, and 20% of them are from refugee backgrounds. Dame Anna, welcome and thank you for coming in. You're from an Italian family who settled in Northern Ireland, and although you don't have the poor socioeconomic background that children in your own school did that sort of immigrant background meant that it was inevitable that you ended up teaching in the sort of school where you are teaching now?
Very definitely, because we were just one Italian family that had children of school age in Banbridge, which is the town I came from, and inevitably people were one wouldn't call it racist. I didn't understand what was happening, but we were always different. And my mother was always very keen to ensure that we kept our Italian heritage, that we knew exactly where we'd come from. And of course, my brother and sister and I were sent to school in Italy for 2 years. And the first language I can remember ever hearing was Italian. And we grew up with parallel language.
So that's given you a great affinity, presumably, with the children you teach and
very
their families
much
as well.
Yeah,
You've actually been at Millfields for something over 13, 14 years now. So that is a fairly long stint for a leading head. You usually get moved on a lot sooner than that. But just tell us about how you got the job and why you decided to go and teach there.
Well, I was head at Grasmere Community School in Albion Road, which is a Hackney school too. I didn't realise how well off I was there. It was actually a very middle class school. I was asked to go and look at Millfields because at that time what they were planning to do was to amalgamate the infant and the junior school. And I was brought there one day by one of the directors that was in Hackney then, and asked to have a look around the school and see what I thought. And I was very shocked by what I saw.
What did you find when you got there?
I found it the children were very passive. I found it very untidy. In fact, I would say it was dirty. The toilets stank. It wasn't looked after. There was no sense of respect or respecting where you were, respecting the environment. I feel that schools should be living, exciting environments for children. And so everything was very dull and dirty. In fact, I was given a cup of tea with an ant. Floating about in it.
But what had gone wrong? Because although you were in a more affluent area than Hackney, there are many schools in Hackney elsewhere serving less affluent background, children from less affluent backgrounds who do well. So when you went in there, I mean, what do you think? I've got to change this first of all. What was the major thing that you felt was holding the school back?
Well, there were several things. So in terms of the building, in order to make sure the children felt welcomed and were in an environment of learning, I had to look at the classrooms and make those tidy. In terms of the children, I felt they were very passive, and I had to ensure that the children had a say and were listened to so that they could speak up and say, we don't like this or we do like that or whatever. And in terms of the teaching staff, and in fact the whole staff, it was about getting them back their self-respect, because many of them didn't appear to have self-respect. It didn't appear to understand that they were accountable.
I think I read somewhere as well that teacher attendance was
under 50%.
So the amount of instability that was around at that time. How did you go about turning a staff round like that? Did you? I mean, you presumably wanted stability and continuity. Did you do it with the staff you'd got, or in those first few years, did you recruit a lot of new staff?
Well, when I had a vision, and the vision was about what I wanted for that school, and I shared that vision, and many people came on board, and indeed our senior managers today and our fantastic staff. It was about showing people what could happen, about praising, about saying, praising teachers and children as well, about showing them where the positives were, about bringing in positive reward for teachers and children, so that together we were making that journey. It wasn't easy. It was a long but very hard journey. However, very much like the Rolling Stone, as soon as that first move began, then it began to move really very quickly.
Thing was the first movement. Your school was and is a very multiracial school, and everything I've read about your approach to your school and to teaching sees that as one of its greatest assets. We live at a time where that sort of situation is seen as a problem. That must drive you mad when you hear that sort of commentary, that that is a problem.
Well, I do get very angry when I hear people being derogative. We're all different. I mean, I'm different, I'm fat, I'm of Italian background,
Yeah.
I'm married to a Turkish person, my grandchild has West Indian origin in her body too. But all these things, I was brought up to know that we all bring something, and what we bring is very exciting and interesting. If we were all the same, it would be a very boring world. There are challenges, and very much what I've known about my mother coming to Ireland, not knowing the systems and structure and working her way through it and being laughed at and thought of being odd, always sticks in my mind. So what I try to do is to make sure that our children are welcomed and our parents are welcomed, and that they know exactly what's going on here. So the school is an adult learning centre, so that we have parents in, we're supporting them to learn English, we're supporting them in finding out different things, we're supporting them in developing careers that they may have already had in their own country.
Let's go on to that a bit, because I think it's probably, from what I've read, one of the most interesting things about your school. I mean, it seems to me that you were doing extended schools and community nurseries long before it became an initiative that everybody had to do. And yet you're a school where you had challenges in terms of building, staffing and pupils, and you chose to take on reforming parents' attitudes and communities as well. Now, presumably you did it because you thought it was essential to raising standards.
Well, everything is about standards, because I feel that children, whoever they are, from whatever background, if they haven't got aspirations to achieve, or they haven't got ambitions for the future, then you know, you may as well give up. Anything that's happened in Millfields has come about because of need. So therefore the extended day, we started that to support the parents, because if you want a job in London, you know, it takes you maybe 2 hours to get to your work and 2 hours back. Schools open at 9 and finish at 3:30. What happens to the children while the parents are trying to struggle back? My parents, who were studying or who were doing lifelong learning in school, if they were able to get a job, and many did through the work that we have done, then needed to know that their children were safe and sound, but enjoying another extension to school life as well.
And has that approach enabled you to raise standards across the board? I mean, we worry a lot these days about underachievement of children from ethnic minority backgrounds, and particularly in primary school, there's drop-off there seems to be between baseline assessment and what a black Afro-Caribbean boys achieve at the age of 11. So has, if you like, your method and your approach enabled you to overcome those problems?
Well, for some reason we don't have a difficulty with our black Afro-Caribbean boys and their achievement.
Well, hang on a minute, it was just to say for some reason, it has to be for a reason, and presumably you would think it's because of this broad approach, would you?
I think it's because you have a broad approach. I also believe that you learn in different ways.
Yes.
And that children need different opportunities, different times, different ways of working. So for example, with our Shine Academy on Saturday, which is an accelerated academy for learning, it works 30 Saturdays a year. The children, there's about 150 children attend that, and we can really track the achievement in that and the raising of standards.
Do you ever worry that because of the situation of your school, and it's got 70% of children for whom English is a second language, that you are one of these schools there's been a lot of talk about in the last few months about children, it may not be a faith school, but essentially it's ethnically separate. What's your thoughts on that and the debate we've had?
Being a Roman Catholic myself and being married to a Muslim, and for 35 years we haven't had any difficulties. I think that I worry about the debate that's going on, because I think people don't consider that we have to live in a world that is socially mixed. The school is multi-faith school. We have a variety of different faiths. We want the children to learn and respect each other's faiths and to value them. And I'm very pleased to say that in Millfields, because of that respect that comes from every single member of my staff and the children and the parents, we don't have any difficulties.
And
We respect and value.
And you think that that ethos can be taught whether it's a faith school or not?
Yes.
It's a case of how you teach, not necessarily
Yes.
the type of school that it is.
I think it's how you talk to people. I think it's the way you model for the children. I think it's what you do in your actions. So, for example, in assemblies, in our celebrations, in what we do, it's about how you live your life. Children are watching all the time.
Has your intake changed since you turned the school around?
Yes, and it's difficult. We do have a lot of what one would say middle-class families wishing to come into the school. I do believe that house prices have gone up too as well.
You're responsible for the rise in house prices in Hackney.
I hope not.
Presumably does your immediate catchment area give you a better social mix than perhaps previously was the case?
With the houses opposite the school, yes.
I think often when we look at what you've done in a school like that, which is tremendous if you think of the thousands of children who've got a better life chance because they're now in a good school rather than a poor school. I think sometimes we wonder whether that's just because of you, whether it can be replicable throughout the whole school system. Is the answer there before us if only we could see it and replicate it?
Well, I think it's about leadership. And I think that, I have to say that Millfields wouldn't be what it is now without the people that I have around me. I had to be very, very courageous to begin with. There were many times when I felt like saying, well, this is it. It's a hard job and it's a certain type of person.
Were there times when you felt like giving up?
Many, many times, but I never cried in school. I always went home and cried.
Right. I'm afraid there's probably one or two heads who can do that. But you must have been, at the other end, you must have been thrilled when you were made a dame and you went in February to the palace to receive the honour from the Queen. What did you feel about that and what did the school feel about it?
Well, I thought they'd made a mistake because I'm usually in trouble or I'm always stepping out of the box. And when it really sunk in, I was really, really delighted. I was absolutely over the moon because it wasn't for me. It was for my children and for the staff. And the children were just absolutely amazing. They just know, many of them wish to become dames too, including the boys.
So that's now an ambition to be a dame. What's your next challenge for yourself?
God knows. For me,
you don't fancy taking on another headship of a underperforming school?
I don't think I could start again. I do help in other schools. But you see, the problem is with vision, every time you do something, then there's more to do.
Well, whatever it is that becomes your next challenge, I hope it goes really well. Thank you very much for coming to talk to us today.
Thank you.